Welcome into DRF Daily, DRF Sportsbooks betting live stream coming at you each and every day that there are sports, folks. We have a fantastic Thursday night breakdown coming at you. The Falcons heading down to Charlotte to take on the Carolina Panthers. Panthers coming into this one as a 2.5-point dog at home. Panthers, one of the most embarrassing losses of the season. I know the final score was 42-21, so not like terribly embarrassing in terms of the final score, but it wasn't that great as Joe Mixon ran all over the Panthers, and man, it did not look good. Panthers plus 2.5 coming off of a 42-21 beatdown against the Bengals, and in that game, the Bengals ran all over the Panthers. Joe Mixon, I believe, had 4 rushing touchdowns, 1 through the air, so 5 total touchdowns for Joe Mixon. He was giving themselves every single sort of fit, and if you had Joe Mixon on your fantasy team, congratulations. Both of these teams come in with similar strengths of schedules. They come in with a 20.4 strength of schedule and a 20.1 strength of schedule. And how we figure that out is we take our StatFox power ratings of every single team. We use those. We then break it down, finding out the average for both. The higher the number, the harder the schedule. So both of these teams have had very, very, very similar schedules this season in terms of strength. They've faced essentially the same type of opponent. It's off by 0.3, but we can throw that out the window, and they've essentially faced the same opponent. Against similar opponents, the Falcons have a negative 0.9 point differential. The Panthers have a whopping minus 5.4 point differential. So both of these teams you think, could be kind of similar. Both of them, in all honesty, are in the running for NFC South number 1 and NFC South. Panthers a little bit further back. But say the Falcons lose tonight, all of a sudden it gets really wacky at the top of the NFC South. But the Falcons are the slightly better team, even with that negative point differential. And the history is not on the Panthers' side. Last week, Panthers-Bengals went over the point total. That's the 11th time that's happened, dating back to last season, that the Panthers have gone over a point total. And in the 10 other games following going over, the Panthers are 0-10 against the spread. And a really weird one, a really, really weird historical trend that is not in the Panthers' favor. Dating back to the start of last season, they faced off against 7 teams that allow a completion percentage of 64% or better. And we're describing those as awful pass defenses. That's some of the worst marks in the NFL. They've gone 0-7 against the spread in those games. The Panthers are bad. The Panthers haven't been good for a while. There's absolutely no way that the Panthers are going to pull this one out. And that's why 68% of the Falcons, 68% of the public is on the Falcons in this one. The Panthers, even at home, aren't good. Bank of America Field, being from Charlotte, North Carolina, there isn't much of a home field advantage at Bank of America Stadium, especially with this team being so bad. PJ Walker, fantastic story, not a good quarterback. And then on top of that, the Panthers are 18th, so the bottom half of the league in yards allowed per carry. The Falcons are 11th in rush yards per attempt. That's not a fantastic mark, but the thing is, they're committed to the run in one of the biggest ways. They're second in the league in rush attempts behind only the Bears. The Bears are so high up because they're running Justin Fields 15 times a game. The Falcons are actually turning it around and handing it off almost 300 times this season. It's absolutely insane what the Falcons are doing, their dedication to the run. And you look here at the game capsule, just scrolling things through. Atlanta, they have the better offense. Atlanta has roughly the better defense. Same points allowed per game, but they have the better rush defense. Their passing attack can get got. So that'll be interesting to watch throughout, but I just don't think PJ Walker and the Panthers really have much of any advantage going into this one. DJ Moore's all right. You traded away Robbie Anderson. You don't have a lot of opportunities to pass the ball in this one. And that's why our power line, the value's essentially on the Falcons here. Power line makes this one -1, which is pretty much on the money for what our power line's been doing this season. And game simulators, Atlanta wins in estimate number 1 by 4. Estimate number 1, you see here, takes the projected yards total for each team and converts that into an expected score using the offensive yard point average and their opponent's defensive yards per point average. So that's taking kind of what we've seen so far this season and figuring out how this game's going to play out. This is going to be determining the team's projected offense, yards per play, and projected turnovers with all past games where the team had similar statistics. The average score of these teams is used as the prediction. This one uses a little bit more like advanced stats and things of that sort. But both of them like the Falcons to win, one by 2 and the other by 4. You average that out. They're covering in this one. And I think it's going to come down to the fact that the Falcons are a good running team. Cordero Patterson is back, and I think they are going to just completely lean on that rush attack. That's why I'm all over Falcons -2.5 in this game. There's absolutely no reason. If you're going to bet Panthers +2.5, just keep that money safe in your pocket. There's no way the Panthers are winning this game. There's no way that the Panthers are covering. If it's a close game, I think the Panthers win, but it's not going to be a close game. Falcons win this one with complete ease. Going into some of our player props for today, we have Cordero Patterson. His over-under is set at 54.5 rush yards. If you go to his rush plus receiving, it's set at 64.5. If you go to just his receiving prop, it's at 7.5. So there's absolutely no value if you want to do his rush plus receiving yards, because that's assuming that there's about 10 yards of receiving, but his actual receiving prop is at 7.5. I'm going to break it all down here for Cordero Patterson because I'm leaning the over 54.5 rush yards for Cordero Patterson. He just got back from IR after missing about 4 or 5 weeks. I know he's on my fantasy team, also why I want him to go over here today. If he goes over, I can finally get my second win in fantasy, one of my worst seasons in fantasy of all time, mainly because James Conner has been a bust and has been on questionable and IR for a majority of the season. We won't get into my team too much. But Cordero Patterson, he doesn't get the target share needed for you to go to his rush plus receiving yards. I know you think of him as a playmaker, but Arthur Smith is anti-throwing to Kyle Pitts, anti-throwing to Cordero Patterson, anti-consistently throwing it to Drake London. Arthur Smith believes that you're going to win the game by pounding the rock and controlling the clock, which is fine. I do wish, though, his numbers were slightly lower. He's been boom or bust this season. When he goes over 54.5 yards, he's going for 120-plus yards. If he's going under, he's not even sniffing this close. He's getting barely 45 rush yards. So it's a boom or bust type of play. But the fact that he returned last game, he got a few carries last time. I don't think he'll be on a carry count if he was even last week. And going up against a Panthers team that allows 18 yards per carry, it's not a strong Panthers defense. Plus, the Panthers just got absolutely shredded by Joe Mixon. You could be thinking, well, they're going to shore up their issues. I mean, this team just isn't good. The Panthers aren't good. Cordero Patterson, I think, is going to have himself a game, kind of a resurgence to what he was doing at the beginning of the season. And I believe in weeks 1 through 3, he went over 150 yards twice. I think he continues that. And I think he'll have a really good day. And that's why I'm on over 54.5 rush yards for Cordero Patterson. And I think his receiving yards might be worth a sprinkle. He had 9 receiving yards last time. I believe he's gone over 7.5 in all but 1 games he's played in so far this season. And his receiving yards prop is set at 7.5. And 1 catch, that's hitting. Now, he doesn't get the target share to demand anything really more than 7.5, which is why I'm staying away from his rush plus receiving yards prop at 64.5, because I think it might be it's going to be tough. And I just don't think the odds are in your favor for his rush plus receiving. But I think the odds are in your favor for his rush yards prop, and I think they're in your favor for his receiving yards prop. But my best bet is his over rush yards prop. So moving on from Cordero Patterson, we're staying in the backfield of Atlanta. Marcus Mariota over under 156.5 pass yards. Over, I think, is the play. He's gone over that number 4 of 8 times this season. Granted, he's not known for, lighting up the scoreboard, but he's looked pretty solid the last 2 weeks. The Panthers also are a terrible secondary in terms of allowing yards. They've allowed over 156.5 pass yards every single game except for 1 this season, and they average 231 pass yards allowed per game, around, I think it's 6.7 yards per completion. This Panthers defense isn't going to stop the pass all that much. And I do think, though, that the Panthers will be playing from behind, so the Falcons will be playing up, and the Falcons are so adamant on running the ball that it might be a little tough to get to 156.5 pass yards. I was actually leaning the under here because I just didn't have a lot of faith. But Marcus Mariota, in the games he's faced off against the Panthers, he averages 219 pass yards on 18 of 26. And that roughly feels like what's going to happen today. Pair that on top of the fact that, the Panthers secondary just isn't all that great. And I think there's some value on Marcus Mariota over 156.5 pass yards. And life's too short to bet the under. That's why I'm always trying to target which ones give me the value for the over. And I think that's Cordell Patterson rush yards. I think that's Marcus Mariota pass yards. I don't think the Panthers are going to do a lot in this game to make you really want to do anything for their offense. I don't think they're a great offense. I think PJ Walker had one good game, but even in their 21-3 upset of the Buccaneers, their offense didn't look good. And then their offense didn't look good last week. So I don't think PJ Walker's the answer in Carolina as much as fans want to buy into that. His XFL story is fantastic. Him getting signed. He's a Temple guy, came to Carolina with Matt Rule. Matt Rule gets fired. He usurps Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold to be the star. It's a great story, but he's not good. Right? Like this team just isn't good. This team has a lot of pieces to help that rebuild in DJ Moore, in Brian Burns. It was good of them to get CMC out of the building. But the Panthers, as of right now, just aren't a good football team. That's why I'm on Falcons -2.5. They're going to dominate the Panthers here tonight. Even on the road, Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte isn't a vaunted home field advantage, at least not now with the Panthers being bad. Cordell Patterson, he's going to rush all over this Panthers defense, over 54.5 rush yards. I mean, he either is going over that and going over 120 yards, or he's going under that, just the way this season has played out. But I think he's going over 54.5 rush yards here tonight. And so's Marcus Mariota, over 156.5 pass yards. Mariota, in his career against Carolina, has gone 219 yards per game, 1.5 touchdowns to 1.5 interceptions, and he goes 18 of 26, which just about sounds like the game script here tonight for the Falcons. They're going to rush it a lot. You might want to target maybe his pass plus rush yards because Mariota might be able to run it, but I think Mariota will get just over 156.5 pass yards. For a second, I wanted to go under on it. But, after seeing what his career average is, seeing what this Panthers team does against the pass, I feel comfortable enough to go Marcus Mariota over 156.5 pass yards. So, thank you so much for tuning in to DRF Daily. We'll be back tomorrow morning breaking down some Friday college football action and a couple Saturday games that we want to target early on in the day, early on in Friday. And we'll be back potentially. We won't be on Saturday or Sunday, but we'll be back on Monday. But first, we have Friday. Let's have a profitable Thursday. Turn that into a winning Friday. See you guys tomorrow, same time, same place.